everyone, my name is Desola. I'm a fashion designer and you are welcome to my channel. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to Daisy's Wardrobe. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're an existing subscriber, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. And if you've seen my videos before and you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so. And put on the notification bell so that you know when I put up a new video. I'm an African-inspired ready-to-wear fashion designer based here in Lagos, Nigeria, and I've been in business for over 10 years. So here on my channel, I talk about starting a fashion business, being a fashion designer, starting a clothing brand, all things business, all things fashion, and sometimes, once in a while, I talk about my life. So here in today's video, I'll be talking about how to start a brick and mortar clothing store. So like I said, I'm an African-inspired ready-to-wear fashion designer. I make my designs and I sell my designs right here in my store, and that's what I've done for over 10 years. So I've owned a brick and mortar, I've run a brick and mortar clothing store for over 10 years. I started my clothing business with a brick and mortar store. And what do I mean by a brick and mortar? For those who don't know what a brick and mortar is, a brick and mortar is a physical store. It's a physical space whereby it is not online, a physical space whereby you can go in and interact with the business physically. So like I said, how to start a brick and mortar clothing store. You may be thinking to yourself, or you may be wondering, or have the idea of starting a brick and mortar clothing store. You want to start selling clothes, or you want to start a clothing brand and you want to have a physical space, or you want to have both a physical space and an online space, which is very, very possible. A lot of people that have physical stores also have online spaces, that is online stores where they sell their clothing. So if that is what you have in mind, then this is the video for you. So you may want to know that a physical clothing store is different from an online clothing store. An online clothing store is predominantly based online, and a physical clothing store is a physical store whereby your customers can come in and relate with you. And whereas with an online business or an online clothing store, your customers relate with you virtually. So the first thing you want to think about is, what kind of clothing store do you want to start, or do you want to have? There are different kinds of clothing stores, and you want to think about that. There are big clothing stores and there are small clothing stores, and at the same time there are some medium-sized clothing stores, depending on wherever it is that you are. You want to think about, what kind of clothing store do you want? Do you want a big one? Do you want a medium-sized one? Do you want a very small one for starters to start with, and then as the years go by, you move into a bigger space? So from my own personal experience, when I first started my own clothing business, I started with a physical store, like I said, and it was a very, very small space. Because I didn't really have experience selling clothes or owning a store, I opted out into having a very small space. And also that was what my budget could handle at the time. So I started very small, and gradually as the years went by, I started to go bigger and bigger. So you may want to think, what kind of clothing store do I have? And the determining factor for the kind of clothing store you want to have is, how much funds do you have? Because when you have a physical store, you are most likely renting a space. The way renting a space is done in different parts of the world is literally different. In some parts of the world, when you rent a store space or a storefront, you pay on a monthly basis. And in some parts of the world, when you rent a physical store, you pay on an annual basis. So you may want to think, depending on wherever it is that you are, you may want to think that, what can I afford? When you think about what you can afford, then that will tell you whether you want a small physical space or a medium-sized one or a big-sized one. Also, you want to think about the kinds of clothes that you are selling and the demographic of the people that you are selling to. The kind of clothing that you're selling will also help you in determining the kind of clothing store that you want to have. the kind of people that you're selling to. Are they younger people or older people? You want to think about proximity, where you will find these people. How accessible is this particular place that you are looking at to start your clothing store? How accessible is it for these kind of people? And do these kind of people, do they prefer to shop online, or do they prefer to shop in a physical space? These are questions that you have to think about when you're thinking of starting a clothing store, because the way customers relate with brick and mortar stores will be different from the way customers would relate with an online store. Your location is very, very important. When you have decided and thought about who your target customers are or who they will be, your location is very important, because if you put your clothing store in a place whereby, for example, let's take activewear. You're thinking of starting a physical clothing store for sportswear or activewear, and you're going to open the store in a place where is mostly filled with people that are retired or very, very young children. This may not work out too well. You may want to think about your location when you are trying to start this brick and mortar business, because retired people or very old people may not necessarily go to the gym, and even if they decide to work out, they will probably most likely work out around their house or within their house. Little children do not necessarily go to the gym. They are outside their houses playing on the playground, in school. So, or opening a physical store, a physical clothing store within that vicinity is not the best thing to do, because you will struggle to find customers. So location is very, very, very important. When you have decided on your location, you also have to come back to, think about the funds that you have. The funds that you have will determine the size of your clothing store, whether it's going to be a small store or a big store. Because when it comes to renting spaces based on location, prices vary. In some states, in some areas of a country, the housing prices or the market value of stores, houses will vary from one place to the other. Then you also need to think about your permits, your licenses. It depends on where you live and where you're operating your business from. There are different requirements. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria. So for example, if you want to rent a brick and mortar store to start a clothing store, there are certain things that are required. And some of these things are, the landlord expects that your business is registered, properly registered. Some even want to see that you have certain things in place. They want to see that you have they know who you are online. So you find out, some landlords go online to search for your business and see what your business is all about. So you want to have those things in place. If your business is not yet registered and you decide to start a brick and mortar clothing store, that may be a challenge for you, especially if you live here. Another thing to think about is inventory. You have to think about the inventory that you're going to sell in your brick and mortar clothing store. How do you intend to source for the inventory? Are you going to be producing your inventory by yourself? Are you going to be ordering your inventory wholesale and retailing them? You need to think about these things. Are you going to partner with someone to get your inventory for your brick and mortar clothing store? Whatever one it is, or whichever one you choose, you need to make sure that there's always inventory available for your brick and mortar clothing store whenever it is that you need it. Because what you don't want is having a brick and mortar clothing store that has no inventory or little amounts or little quantities of inventory to sell to its customers. And that can be due to maybe the people you buy from, your wholesalers, you don't have a consistent relationship with them, or they are not consistent themselves. If you're producing yourself, you're having issues in production and things like that. You want to eliminate all that as much as possible so that you can have a smooth and easy line of inventory coming into your brick and mortar clothing store. You also want to think about people that would work for you in your brick and mortar store, the people that would assist you in attending to your customers, the people that would assist you basically generally in running the business. And if it's a very small brick and mortar clothing store and you want to run it by yourself and you feel that you're not yet ready to hire somebody, that's fine as well. But if you're considering or thinking about hiring someone for your brick and mortar clothing store, then you have to think about the kind of people that you want to hire. What qualities would you want them to have? What expectations do you have of a person that's going to be working in your brick and mortar store? And lastly, you want to develop a marketing strategy for your brick and mortar clothing store. In as much as it is a physical business, it also needs an online presence. An online presence whereby you're going to market this business to people, to more people, because you have to remember that if a certain number of people are going to walk past your store or have contact with your store physically, there's another group of people, so many of them, who don't know about your business, who don't know about your store, who don't know anything about you, and they would love to know about your business or buy whatever it is that you have. Having an online marketing strategy is very, very important so that you can promote this brick and mortar store so that more people can come into your brick and mortar clothing store. If you don't know how to go about this, I have videos on my channel. I'll put some links in the description for you to watch some of these videos on how to market and promote your clothes to your target customers or your audience. So my video for today is done. I hope you learned a thing or two. If you enjoyed watching my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe and put on the notification bell so that you know when I put up a new video. And so I will see you soon. Bye.